This is part 3. As we look at circle number 3, I want to stop here and see what this means in relation to prayer, specifically in our situation right now. I find it interesting for all of us who are outside the circle, and I'm not talking about believers right now. I'm talking about unbelievers, specifically our friends and family who don't know Jesus Christ. I find it interesting the phrasing used during times of crisis, such as the one that we're in. The pleas that I see on Facebook or hear from friends who do not know Christ. While they remain hostile to God in their hearts and they want nothing to do with his plan of communion with him or his sacrifice in Jesus Christ, they certainly want his protection and provision, and so they will call upon him. They plead for prayers as if they know him. But if that circle is true, if we're outside of that circle and we are dead, how can a dead man speak out those prayers to be heard? Those who do not know him plead for positive vibes to come their way. But how can positivity come from hostility and enemy territory? This particular circle is where the vast majority of people choose to actually live their lives in hostility to God. But when troubled times come, they call out to God only for him not to really hear. And so what I want you to see is that God's ultimate heart certainly is for these people, and he changes people during this time. But this prayer piece certainly should not be one that we act in that manner that, according to R.C. Sproul, this type of attitude is actually the height of arrogance, because what it is saying for the majority of our lives is that our judgment is better than his until we're in trouble, and his authority does not apply to us until we're in trouble. Yet here we are begging for his help in time of need, to only turn around and go back to our own way. And so what I want you to see here is this really desperate situation for mankind and a need for a savior to come in. So would you take a moment to pause and draw circle number 3 and answer the reflective question? You're probably wondering by now, how does this apply to chapter 3, Jesus and Prayer? I hope that the last question you did see the desperation for a savior, because if we're dead, we cannot get up and save ourselves and put ourselves back into that situation, back into that communion. The alienation from the Father now has set another thing into action, and that is the compassion of the Father. Now what we're going to see is the Father's grand plan to win us back so that we can be back in communion, which was his original intent. Now is his desire to redeem mankind. On page 23 in your book, the author points out a beautiful passage that I think most of us miss. It's in Psalm 2, 7 through 8, where there's this conversation, this rare conversation that you hear going on between God the Father and God the Son. This is actually in your study guide, and so I would like you to take a moment to find it. It's Psalm 2, 7 through 8. It says this: "The Father said to me, 'You are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession.'" Here you see something absolutely amazing. The Father, Jesus the Son, is actually asking of the Father something. And the Father is promising him in return to give the Son the nations for his willingness to take on human flesh and fulfill the plan of redemption, to bring us back into that circle of communion. And in the most sacrificial act, Jesus later on says, yes, I will accomplish that plan for you. Enter in the 4th circle and what I would like to call the mission. It is here that Jesus Christ becomes man in order to carry out the will of the Father. And so this circle, if you would like to draw it, looks like this. Notice we're still on the outside. The circle looks the exact same, except for this is Jesus's earthly ministry and how he actually accomplishes God's plan. Now, what I want you to see is that the author in chapter 3 doesn't spend much time talking about the salvation piece. As much as he spends time focusing on prayer being the key to Jesus being able to do two things. First of all, he's able to carry out this plan of salvation because he is praying. And number two, because he is praying, he is now bringing glory to the Father. The author is very adamant that we miss the point of Jesus praying when we simply say that Jesus is merely giving us an example of how to pray in his life. But rather, he is saying that Jesus had to pray to accomplish these things. So what I would like you to do, take a moment to pause your video, draw circle number for the mission, and then what I would like you to do is read John 5:19 and respond to the question. As we delve a bit deeper, here's what I would like you to do is to see this prayer relationship between Jesus' ministry on earth and his relationship with God and how he accomplished God's will. And so I would like you to do something. Take a moment, turn to page 22 in your book. The author gives us a glimpse of Jesus accomplishing God's kingdom agenda, but he merely gives us a list of 12 different times where we see Jesus praying. I would like for you to pick out 3 different passages from those 12. Read the whole context of the passage, and then write down the situation in which Jesus was praying. Then what I would like you to do is to draw a conclusion as to how this interaction with God showed Jesus' dependence on God to be able to do things. Please do this now. I don't know about you, but as I kept reading through these, I couldn't believe how time after time this relationship with prayer and God's action was married together. This was a direct correlation between their oneness and God accomplishing his purpose.